Hello, welcome to the Upper Deck from Pinstripe Chronicles. I'm Chris. I'm here today with Lynn.
Hey
Thank you for
everybody.
thank you for joining us today. We've got a lot to go over as usual. Um, Lynn, do you have any place you'd like to start? Any place where we should make the first cut, so to speak?
Well, since we both just turned the TV off from today's game, which, I know it was only 90 minutes earlier than we're used to on a Sunday, but it hurt. It was confusing. But look, we were all set to sweep the series, and that became a concern for the first time in the whole series with the Tigers, who we just got done with. And I'm assuming it's not a spoiler alert by the time this drops tomorrow. If it is, that's your fault out there. You're just not keeping up. We did get the sweep, but this was the first win that was not, a breeze for us. And we could break that down in whatever order. We could go right back to the beginning from there.
Yeah.
But that's what's on my top of my mind right now, because it was almost as if Chapman was closing the game, and I was worried till the end. So
Right, exactly. Speaking of Chapman, he's on the IL, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I was gonna say, where's Chapman? But that I just reminded myself where
he is on the IL, and people were asking the same this week about Loizaga, and even I was like, oh yeah, what is up with Loizaga? But he's also he's also on the IL. So with a strain somewhere on his body. How's that? There's my informative contribution.
His left wheel somewhere on his body.
Something's hurting, so he just can't pitch right now. How about that? So, and we already know how hurting the bullpen is. And so, yeah, that's the deal there. So, and we'll talk about the bullpen and how much it was used and what its part was. So do you want to just rewind, Chris?
Yeah, well, we got the win. So, there's that. How far back? Did you want to start earlier this week or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to. I'd like to start with the start of this series with the Tigers.
Yeah.
We knew going in, like we know with some other teams, that had actually been a surprising challenge for us, that, okay, by the numbers, well, we should be fine, other than the threat of Soto in the bullpen and Miggy Cabrera.
Right.
Mr. already in the Hall of Fame without being in the Hall of Fame. And just overall, the pitching saved the day, but the offense contributed much more to that than perhaps, recently. So starting with Tyon, who pitched game one, he was flirting with a no for quite a bit. And then that was blown in the sixth inning. Let's just stick with pitching then. The next day, it was Cole doing the same. And he was into the seventh inning when his was blown. So the upshot of that is that this was the first time in franchise history that during a 10-game stretch that they were back-to-back no hitters going until late in the game. So it was pretty remarkable. I might have the numbers a little bit off.
Yeah.
And I'll clarify those in a minute. But
well, that's the Upper Deck way.
Yes, of course. That's why, we always remind people we're just fans.
We're just fans.
Just fans sitting in the stands. But regardless of what the numbers are, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
2 sequential games, we were on the edge of our seats.
Right.
And so, and then game three, actually Saturday's game, um, it was a combined no hitter at the end. So the pitching, all that to say, was lights out. Felt bad for our ace because he takes things so hard, and we know that's part of what we always say is his Achilles heel. Um, but Cole really, I felt bad when he returned to the dugout and the cameras wouldn't leave him the hell alone.
Oh, yeah.
And you just saw the watery eyes and
Yeah.
the disappointment. And it had to be.
It had to be.
But he's young and, it's still very possible.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep. And then
After all,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, Monty today, of course, Monty, poor Monty. You know, this wasn't our blowout. Last night was. So, he left with us not having the lead. And so that means he doesn't get the win.
Right.
It means King will get the save.
Mhm.
Right. So,
Yeah.
still in all, it's the pitching.
Right. Yeah. The pitching has been, we got numbers, pitching has been outstanding. It's been so much fun to watch every night as these pitchers baffle and, strike out these guys. And it's not like Miggy Cabrera, for example. He didn't have any success until today. And then, fortunately, he had a rather success. So,
right.
Yeah.
He just couldn't leave town.
No.
No.
Exactly. But let me throw out some of these numbers.
Sure.
Michael Groggins, Mikey Groggins, said in the Yankees' last 4 starts, and this is one thing I find impressive, is everyone except, including Monty up to that point, had pitched 7 or more innings. And Tyone had even pitched 8 innings in his last 4 starts, up to 8. I think maybe that's an average of what he pitched.
Right.
But have been outstanding and giving us length.
Right. Right. And although we could say, because they weren't at the beginning of the season, right. And our concern was, we're going to burn out that stellar bullpen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the concern because that's what was starting to go on. And then sure enough, it played out because look how many are out. I'm not saying that was the only consequence.
Right.
But it was good to see that Boone and whoever else, Matt Blake probably, said, okay, it's time to stretch these guys out. They're ready for it, and clearly they are because, Sevy was asking for it earlier on. Like, I have at least one more in me. Like,
yeah.
So, so they definitely are going the length, which I think hopefully we all would want to sustain, right? Because we want the bullpen to be just what it's intended to be. It is starting to look like stacking pitchers type of game.
Right.
And so it's good to see us getting back from that and succeeding.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only succeeding, but succeeding at a historic level. Because right. Yankee Slut posted that through 52 games, the Yankees have posted a 2.78 ERA and a .750 OPS. The last time a Yankees team has matched this through the first 52 games of a season was never. They've never done it. Wow.
I mean, that deserves its own plaque somewhere.
I know. It gives me chills to say it almost.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to, I don't want to jinx this rotation in any way.
No. And I don't, Well, I'm not going to put it out to the universe. They seem unstoppable, and
Yeah,
that's not to say that they're not going to have their peaks and valleys. There's going to be a valley at some point,
right.
both pitching and offensively. But I think as opposed to past seasons, probably since 2009, we've had much more, valleys than ups, and certainly never both at the same time like we've
Right.
been getting more and more, except
Yeah.
for when Monty's pitching.
Yeah. Well, one of the pitchers that, has really been, and everyone knows, kicking ass is Nestor Cortez.
Yep.
And Nestor, actually, did you see that Nestor got into the middle of a little bit of a controversy with Jim Kaat this week?
Yes.
That was so unnecessary, unprofessional. It shouldn't and didn't have to happen. If you didn't see it, Jim Kaat called him Nestor the molester.
Yeah.
And then he apologized to Nestor, he said, in person, and Nestor was so gracious about it in a tweet that he sent out afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And far more gracious and forgiving than I would have been, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Because not only was it unprofessional, and I know Jim Kaat is known to not exactly have a filter, but this was beyond that and unprovoked and so unnecessary.
Right.
Not that it's ever necessary to say that, but to Nestor Cortez, who I'm not deifying here, but
right.
But yes, the way Nestor responded, and saying there's nothing to forgive, we all make mistakes.
Right.
So first of all, not only is that gracious, but it's a lesson that Jim Kaat should learn, because Nestor learned from what came out about him that was several years old.
Right.
And, I think he feels humbled that the fans, other than the chatter that can't be avoided on social media, quieted down, and they didn't go on about it with him and didn't boo him when he returned and all that sort of thing. Yep. So I think he self-reflected and he's like paying it forward in that way.
Yeah.
So and I think there's certain two players from recent memory that could do well to watch that and remember that. But yeah, just really awful and a distraction from the game for sure.
Yeah. And a distraction from these amazing numbers that Nestor's putting up. His ERA, and I think these numbers are from yesterday. I pulled them yesterday. His ERA is 1.53, which is second in the league. Opponent average 180. Opponents are batting 180 against him, which is first. Strikeout percentage, he's sixth with 30.1, and fifth in the league in WAR with a 2.2. I mean, this guy is heading to the All-Star game.
100%. And if this keeps up, he's going to get the Cy Young.
Yeah.
He's on a great track for that. I know it's early, but if he stays on track, he's a solid candidate for that.
And I can see him starting the All-Star game, like being this number one starter.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's Verlander out there, but you know what? He's been there, done that. We're tired of Verlander.
Yeah, and
we got a new king.
He's not the one above Nestor's numbers, is he? I'm not remembering. Is it
I think he probably is. I didn't look it up. I should have looked at the leaderboard, but I didn't.
I remember reading it, but
I
already demonstrated my headspace.
I just assumed it was Verlander, but it could not be Verlander.
Well, I know who it isn't. It isn't Ohtani.
Yeah. Do you want to say any words about Ohtani?
I do. I really shouldn't have just dropped us at the beginning to the Tigers.
Right.
Let's talk about it. We owned Otani.
We own that man.
We owned the Angels. They left without halos.
Yes, they
Um,
did, man. We took their halos. And the thing is, I'm a secret Otani lover. So I was really disappointed in his performance because he didn't put up a good show against us.
no, and it's the prime example of what we were just saying. Everybody's gonna slump. We
Yeah,
just happen to be able to capitalize on it,
right.
both in his hitting and his pitching.
Yeah,
But man, did we were his daddy.
yeah. We put
uh,
it to the Angels.
for sure. And that was such a surprise because when they came in, just like I feel when the Jays come in, I got that little knot in my stomach,
Yeah,
particularly because of Otani.
yeah.
So I'm hoping that I see the same next time we face the Jays, and I won't have to worry about Vladdy Jr. and Bichette and
Yeah,
all those
exactly.
other Yankee eaters there.
Yeah,
But that was a tremendous showing for us against the Angels,
yeah.
and although they're certainly not up there the way the Dodgers are, but
Right.
again, it's all about Otani.
It's
So,
all about Otani. And they are a 500 team.
which is saying a lot lately.
Right. I mean, the Yankee slut said in a tweet this week, of all division leading teams in baseball, the Yankees have played the most games against less than 500 teams. And against the less than 500 teams, we have an 11-5 record, which is the second best in baseball.
Yeah.
So we're beating the teams we should beat.
Right. And that was a little bit less true at the beginning of the season when the Orioles embarrassed us. But similarly, Katie Sharp, speaking of numbers, which I usually don't have to throw out there, and this is where I muddled things up a little bit at the beginning. She wrote that the Yankees this was yesterday. She wrote that Yankees have allowed 12 runs in their last 10 games. That's the fewest runs allowed in any 10-game span in franchise history. So,
right.
In franchise history, like let that sink in. So,
I know.
1901, is it? I'm not good at math, but
wow.
So let that sink in. And so, today is 11 game stretch, but it's also 13 have allowed 14 runs
right.
in a game stretch.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the division there, but it seems it would go to follow that it's still true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
wow. I mean, this is just a phenomenal team, and it's so fun to be witnessing it. Especially Talking Yanks had this little blurb that got me thinking this week. And their question was, what do you think has been the biggest difference between this year's Yankees and the other Yankees teams in recent history? So I got to thinking about that. I mean, the biggest difference is, for me, consistency. This team has consistently performed at an elite level, the pitching especially, over what did I just say, the first 52 games.
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're not, like you said, it's a small sample size. What are we at? Quarter of the way through the season or something at this point? I mean,
I don't know exactly what game we're at.
I can't do the math, but I'd have to say that consistency and winning, consistent on offense, consistent in pitching. Now the defense, that's another question, I think, a little bit. But anyway, it's a good question. What do you think, Lynn?
So to me, it's not so much about the game itself, although I'd be remiss if I didn't note the happy surprise that we have much more power and ability on the field, and some batters, some hitting that from those that were here last year that were a happy surprise this year. Rizzo has really broken free, and putting things out of the park, and
Right.
this series, for example, and we've had pleasant surprises too, right? And
IKF has been a pleasant
IKF
surprise.
and what Nestor's transformation last season is part of the biggest difference this season too, because, and this is where my real answer is, which was going to be the chemistry is the biggest difference.
Okay.
Because they're really giving me 1998 vibes.
Yeah.
They're giving me those, Jeter, Posada, O'Neill, the core four and the rest of the guys, because core four was a marketing ploy. There was much bigger core than that, and everyone mattered. But you see it in the clubhouse. They're it's not so much that they're clowning around, which they are, and that's always nice to see.
Yeah.
But they're sitting together and they're looking at their iPads, and they're, talking to each other about, what they did there that worked and what didn't, and they're giving feedback to each other. And so there's so much camaraderie that's coming through. And, I really believe that plays into the production.
Yeah.
Because so far, the inconsistencies and the dips, haven't so much been about the lackluster, ambivalent sort of slog we've seen the past couple of years.
Wow.
And more about the situational things that were going on at any particular time.
Right.
And and look how we're doing with the pitching challenges right now in the bullpen.
Right.
It's not really a blip on the radar. And, we would have been destroyed last year.
Right.
So I really think it's like, okay. And you can't stack that together by a formula. It just happens.
It just happens. And well, we do have to give Cashman credit, as much as I dislike doing that right now. Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
But IKF, you just got to keep saying to yourself, IKF. He's just, it's not like he's the second coming. But what he is a very compelling, athletic, and very engaging player.
Right.
He seems to be, the mistakes that he makes seem to be almost from being over eager. It seems like he's so aggressive sometimes that maybe he's being too aggressive. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like he makes head blunders. You know what I mean?
No.
Like Glaber did.
Right.
Anyways, he's definitely getting his hits on offense, and they're timely. When he's on base, he gets, he often advances through steal, or, he gets around the bases.
Right.
Somehow.
That's right. And when he doesn't do that so well, which is very rare, he'll tell people, yeah, that was a bonehead move on my part.
Yeah, he will.
And he'll do better, and he did. So 100%, and he was part of the pleasant surprise, that I was referring to.
Yeah.
And yes, he definitely felt like he had to prove himself at the beginning. That was clear.
Yeah.
But now that he's, comfortable, and again, I think the guys he's surrounded with helped with that. He's been a really good ad. And, speaking of the bases, and I know this wasn't supposed to be a 3-answer question, but I'm gonna skip another reason. The base running in general has been relatively spectacular.
Relatively, if you don't think about Hicks.
Right, and let's face it, how much do you want to know about anything?
Exactly.
But there's much more assertiveness on the bags.
Yes.
Rizzo today stole 2 bases in 1 move. And yeah, part of that was because there were, none, this wasn't marked as an error. So, but, there was some lack of defensive prowess
Yeah.
on the Tigers' part, but Rizzo was not on my radar as a base stealer.
Whoa.
And today was not the first time we saw it. And I really truthfully don't know the last time we've stolen 2 this season.
Yeah.
So, he's just one example that popped into my head.
Yeah, absolutely.
It used to just be Gardy and Wade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of their speed. So, all right, I'll stop with 3 responses.
All right. Well, there's the positives, but then on the other hand, there's the Hicks, Gallo, Higgy questions. That Gallo hit a home run today, so I'm sure he's suddenly popular for a second out on Twitter right now. But they're definitely, fans are not happy.
No, he got cheers for that, as well he should.
As well he should.
But we have very good memory. Yankees fans do.
Yeah.
Except for me when I don't have caffeine and we do these broadcasts. But yeah, this will be, the next 2 games, if he doesn't do any kind of thing, if it takes that long, he'll be right back in the doghouse. But, tagging on to those 3 names, and Higgy really being the most recent, I was surprised it took so long. Yeah. But we have to talk about Andujar.
Yeah.
Because that all ties in, and Andujar, as you know, Chris, and I suspect a lot of people listening know, he was sent back down after yesterday's game. And I think my first reaction, I want to hear what yours is, of course, was, I'm not looking at any numbers here, but on both sides of his role, he's been working and performing and getting on base and certainly making those plays in the field. And so why not Gallo? Why not DFA Gallo or Hicks? And I was reminded that Hicks doesn't have any options left apparently. And Gallo, he's going to be a free agent in a year.
Right.
So, but that just still doesn't sit right with me. Andujar, was out. I mean, he was second to Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
He almost was Rookie of the Year.
I bought his jersey, for God's sakes.
I'm sorry?
I bought his jersey, for God's sakes.
And may you be proud to wear it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so why is that getting thrown out with the bathwater when he hasn't had much opportunity back since then? And now even less so, because he's going to just be, taxied back and forth.
I know.
So good on him for saying, just release me.
Yeah.
Which they're not going to do.
No.
Because, the 3 of them, Gallo, Hicks, and Andujar, have equal value at this point, which is, right? And their numbers are, pretty comparable to each other. And yet, having said all that, why is it automatically Andujar?
Right. Well, that, of course, is very, sort of, it's baseball, Susan. That's baseball, Susan.
Yes.
And it is. It's the politics and the business of baseball. Andujar is the odd man out for just a number of his contract is. Hicks is being paid the big money. Gallo is, the Gold Glove. And what is this? This is another question I have for you. What is with Gallo suddenly not wanting to play left field?
I don't know what that's about. I don't know if it's about Gallo in particular. Maybe it's more about Hicks, because when you look at the fact that Judge is pretty much the center fielder,
Right.
so that so that um so that Hicks Gallo could be in right,
Yeah.
Hicks could be in left.
Yeah.
Um, Gallo might have been performing better because Gallo's not new to right field,
Yeah.
right? You know, I think
Apparently not.
um and so you know, I can't answer it in the fact of has Gallo said anything, or has anyone said anything about a preference for left field.
Right.
I think it's probably more about perhaps Hicks produces better in left than in right. And Judge, I think, started, you know, playing more in the outfield because, you know, remember the outfield was going, you know, was doing like rotation after rotation because of Stanton's injury and
Right.
Hicks being out and Gardy going away, and
Yeah.
you know, it's been patchwork for a while. And Judge happens to like center field, and whatever
Right.
Judge wants, Judge gets.
Yeah.
It it I mean, and that's fine with me. And plus, pay him how. And and also, and they said this today on the broadcast, and it's right. Um, there's less opportunity for injury in center for Judge,
Yeah.
perhaps. And so um, I don't know, and I don't think we're necessarily finished out there.
Yeah.
With moving.
Really? Now, do you think that Cashman will make a move to put someone in the outfield besides Gallo, that is, or Hicks?
I don't,
See anything?
short of him, you know, getting completely on the page of, okay, I need more of both from Gallo and DFAing him.
Yeah.
You know, and not waiting for free agency, which I know then, you know, I'd be
Yeah.
very surprised, even for Cashman, if
Yeah.
he doesn't get part of a package and get out.
Right.
But absent of that, I think this, and you know, unless they want to start really letting Stanton stick and play, and let, you know, Hicks, or you know, that would mean letting Hicks on the bench be the filler guy.
Yeah.
It would still leave Gallo in the field, but
I'm rolling my eyes because, you know, Stan wasn't even in the lineup. He's only been back one game. He's already out resting. He did come in and pinch hit, and he didn't get anything. He didn't get a hit, but you know, it's like Gallo. What is Stanton? Is he fragile or is he not fragile? Can he play in the outfield? Can he not play in the outfield? It's just
well,
he's a unicorn.
We haven't seen enough consistently to even answer that question. And I think that's because, and I think I referred to this in a tweet today, you know, because, you know, Boo Boo Boone is being like so cautious with people. And now it's just become laughable at what that translates into.
I know.
Because, you know, how are they going to improve or get back into the flow until they're out there playing? So, you know, and I know we've talked about Stanton, and I know how, you know, how you feel. And I just think he hasn't been given enough consistent opportunities. And yes, injury has played into it a lot. And I'm sure that's something that managerially you have to consider.
Well,
but
how much of it is has it been when Stanton is actually injured, which hasn't been all that often, and the fear of Stanton getting injured?
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, oh, okay, you know, like the first day you go back to school after, you know, being out for 5 days,
Right.
you know, you'd come home exhausted and your mother would say, okay, just go to bed a little bit early because you're going back tomorrow. With Boone, it's like, oh, I know. So why don't you just take a day or two off and build your strength back?
Right.
And that's, so and I know Boone gets a lot of the blame that probably isn't actually his blame.
Probably not.
But the Stanton example's not the only one.
No, far from it.
Yeah.
Far from it. I mean, he always sits the hot hand. Never fails.
Right.
If you get it hot, like Trevino got hot recently, next day he's sitting. I mean, it's just uncanny the way it always works with.
Yeah, and why does it work? Doesn't it work that way with Higgy and Gallo?
I know. How come the person with the shitty hand don't get seated instead?
Absolutely. So
why are they getting the consolation prize?
Why is Stanton only coming in to pinch hit late in the game instead of, okay, Gallo, you get the day off and put Stanton in there?
Right.
It doesn't work in reverse.
No.
So it's problematic. You're presuming injuries before they happen.
I know.
Or a recurrence of the injuries.
Right.
And avoiding them is not necessarily the solution. Get them back out there. Let them build their strength back up.
I don't think this happens on other teams.
No. I don't think so either.
Whatever. Other teams aren't the Yankees, right? So.
Right, for the good and the bad of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And sort of as the last thing I have today is the fact that Derek Jeter joined social media this week.
Yes.
He joined Twitter and Instagram, and it was so cool, I thought. What did you think?
It was exciting because, he's been so back in the picture since buying into the Marlins. And I think that, with everything he has going on, obviously his foundation is continuing, and his other work and is growing. And I think now that he's released from being a face of a franchise, he's able to be more public. And it was just really nice to see.
Yeah.
Because it's you're never going to get the comment back or the follow back.
No.
You could see what he's saying, or he's saying through his people every day, multiple times a day.
Right.
And at least pretend you're having a conversation because you tweet something back.
Yeah.
Oh, I spoke with Derek Jeter today.
It's Derek Jeter. I don't get tired of seeing him on my timeline.
No.
Because there, like you pointed out, there hasn't been enough of them. We have not been saturated with Derek Jeter. However, when the documentary drops, which is in a week or so?
Which is another big reason.
We're going to get a lot of Derek Jeter reminiscences probably and stuff like that.
Yes.
So that'll be, I'm excited to watch the documentary.
Very excited to watch that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even need to promote it. So,
no.
That can't really be the compelling reason he came on social.
Yeah. Oh, no.
But I'm sure that his people, are looking at the fact that he stepped away from the Marlins as, okay, let's get you something else with even bigger exposure because of so much you have going on.
Right.
That's growing for you that people are going to want to know about. And this is the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
The most successful. But yes, I'm very happy to see that. I'd like to see that with a lot more players, legendary players from the Dream Team era and even beyond that aren't on social media.
Right.
I'd love to hear from Bernie Williams all the time. And I think he does have an account, but not so active.
Yeah.
So I could do less with Gary Sheffield Jr. I wish he'd deactivate.
I know, exactly.
Out.
Yeah, some of them that do you don't want to interact with.
Right.
But I do love Cece's interactions on Instagram. I don't know if he's on Twitter much, but I do
Right.
see him on Instagram now and then.
Yeah, and Facebook every now and then.
Okay, and Facebook.
Had a mention in Facebook yesterday. And he was on the Peacock broadcast a couple of times between innings.
Yeah.
First of all, whatever he did to improve his health,
Yeah.
he looks amazing. And I'm just so happy for him that, you know, his physical injuries, his knee problem and his back problem, you know, have to be doing so much better. Um, and obviously he's shining on his podcast.
Yeah.
And I've always liked Cece. I want Cece in our booth. I don't want him.
I was just thinking the same thing.
That's the dream. And no disrespect to Beltran and Mabin, which, by the way, speaking of where in the world is Mabin?
I know that he's only been, contracted for a certain number of shows, but it's like he dropped off the earth.
Yeah, without explanation. And Lord knows Michael K talks about things, and I just haven't heard anything about it.
Right.
And Mabin's been getting a very bad rap out there. We don't need to go deeply into it.
You don't need to go into that. Beltran also.
Right. Well, Beltran is who I meant. Maybe as someone else. I understand him perfectly.
Yeah.
I do.
The thing is, you gotta have diversity in the games, and in the booth, in the game, in the everywhere.
Yes.
In the reporting.
Look, and you also have to be willing and open to trying a little bit harder.
Yeah.
If it's a new, dialect or accent to you. It happens in Inter-America. Where, and Brian McNamara brought this up, one of our Twitter friends, and said, look, I have English-speaking relatives. They're from Ireland, and I can't understand a bleeping word they say. And they're speaking English.
Right.
You just have to listen and learn and adjust.
Yes. And
it's been quite an eye-opener to see, I'm sorry, I'm American, so I can't understand him.
Right.
Or comments of the like.
Yeah.
And so I guess I said I wasn't going to get into it, and here I am.
Yeah.
But all that to say, it is true. They're not bringing, neither Mabin or Beltran are bringing quite the depth that we're used to getting from, Paul and Coney, more so Coney.
Right.
But Paul in the sense of as a fielder and a batter.
Yeah.
And Mabin, certainly tries and does pretty well, except when he goes on his tangents about, his folksy stories a bit.
Right.
But that's also part of his charm.
Yes, I agree.
We need that put together booth. That this is where I miss Coney, Kay, and Whitey,
right. And Singleton.
And Singleton, right. So, but we don't have that right now. And part of it is because they're also patchworking.
Right.
Kay's off on his Splinter broadcasts, and Coney as well. Paulie's in his basement, will likely stay there.
Right.
And probably just comes on for Yes, and remains that way.
Yeah.
So we talked about Cece, and I got us into a whole other world, but
you did get us in, but that's the world that needs to be addressed these days.
Yeah.
You just can't sit silent when when comments like that go by,
Right.
This is not the era of sitting quietly while someone else fires off racist comments.
Right. That's
even
right.
If they don't realize it.
That's right. There's such a thing called implicit bias. Google it. everybody.
We put
Um,
their feet to the fire, man.
Right, and would it be better if Beltran or anyone else was talking through a translator? Beltran took the effort to learn English.
Right.
Leiber took the effort to learn English. So did Sevi, you know, and so accent be damned.
I agree.
Wouldn't you have more of a problem if they didn't assimilate?
Yeah.
So, you know, I won't go higher up on my soapbox.
Yeah.
I think we're moving, but you know, when these little examples come up, Chris,
Yeah.
I'm right with you. Popularity or not, and I already lost followers this week, and that's okay with me.
Yeah.
We're all entitled to our opinions and to speak up for what we believe in.
Absolutely.
So all that to say, though, in terms of final thoughts, we have a day off tomorrow. What the heck are we gonna do? Maybe I'll read that book.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe Chris, maybe that'll be the day, the night. And then we face the Twins.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have anything to say about the Twins right now.
Except I'm be glad to check in on Gary and Gio.
Yes. Oh, I'm going to be very happy to see Arshella.
Yes.
And Gary too, who has really been, you know, succeeding there.
Yeah.
Hope not to see it while we're facing.
I hope not either.
But you know, sometimes those changes feel lousy when they happen, but it work out for the best. So
yeah.
But yeah, it'll be really great to see them. And hopefully it sounds greedy, but another series win, if not a sweep. Sooner or later that bubble's gonna have to burst, but I'm not ready for it just yet.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
I want to keep riding that winning wave.
Right. So that's about it for me as well. How about you?
Right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about how the Yankees stack up against teams, recent Yankee teams. Lynn, any final thoughts on that?
No, I just, you know, echo everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
The reason I do this every Sunday is to hear from you and represent what you're all thinking, feeling, and what your insight is. It's not just about us and our takes. We'd like to fill much more of the show with yours.
Yes.
So until next week, have a good one, and we'll see you next year. Lynn needs a nap. See you here next week, right here where you have a reserve seat with us on the upper deck. Have a good week, everybody.
Go Yankees.
Go Yankees.